This is the Dairy Download, brought to you by EverAg Insights and the International Dairy Foods Association, where we offer extra sharp market and policy insights on dairy. I'm your host, Phil Plort.
And I'm your co-host, Kathleen Wolfley.
Very special edition of the Dairy Download this week. It's our 5th anniversary, Kathleen. 5 years of the Dairy Download. Can you believe it?
What? I can't believe it. What's the anniversary gift for 5 years?
I think it's like wood. I mean, it's not very exciting. So there's no sapphires or diamonds or even paper. You know, it's like a 2x4. I don't know. I don't know what to do with it, but I did look that up the other day. I've been thinking the past couple of days of how we even started this. It was COVID, middle of COVID. Our first episode aired on September 17th of 2020. We were in the midst of food box mania. Cheese prices hit below $1 at some point in March, and I just looked up. On September 17th of 2020, we were at $2.59 a pound, which was kind of crazy town for the moment. Lots of swirling things at the time. And this will be the 99th episode of this podcast, 5 years. What's been some of your favorite moments, either in terms of the broadcast history and or our interactions with our fans?
We've had some really, really cool guests on the podcast. We started talking about volatility. I think Dr. Joe Glauber, who we've had on the podcast a couple times, was at least one of our guests to start.
Yeah.
We've had people on to talk about trade. We've had industry folks to talk about specific markets. We've had policymakers. You name it, they've been on the podcast. And to me, the learning has been one of the most fun, and having just cool conversations. We've got a few fans out there, which is pretty nifty. And at Dairy Forum this past year, the t-shirts that IDFA put together, they flew off the shelves. I think on Sunday night, I grabbed a t-shirt just in case. And by Monday morning, there were none to be had.
I think, Kathleen, that was one of the most, most of these interviews have been done the way we're doing this today, on Zoom or on Zencastr and with guests. But what IDFA and Jeff Cullen and Mariah and Andrew, the whole IDFA team, did for Dairy Forum this year was really special. We had that sort of studio in the middle of the traffic zone. We had, 5 or 6 different podcast recordings there. The tone was fun. The guests were fun. We were looking face to face. I had the opportunity last week to moderate a panel with Patty Stroop, who's one of the panelists. And Patty was she was the outgoing chairperson of IDFA at the moment, and sat down with us for a great interview. One of our best episodes, I think, the one was she and Cheryl Meshke, I want to say, Women in Dairy Leadership, if I'm remembering correctly. And just the energy, and people like, hey, this is cool. It was a really special thing. It was kind of like, I'd like to say that, in the little pond of niche dairy podcasts, we're at least a medium-sized fish. But that moment, it was really fun for me personally. I don't know about you.
If you're allowed to be a little bit of a celebrity in the dairy industry, again, the little niche dairy industry.
It's all relative, Kathleen. Dairy famous is dairy famous.
Yeah, exactly.
It feels like at points we've met all of our listeners. The numbers have gotten much bigger. We've had 133,000 total downloads since we started, which is pretty crazy to think about.
That's more than mom and dad and grandma.
Well, yeah, we run out of family members at 10, right? 15, something like that. The most listened to episode, number 80, all about butter, more than 3,000 downloads. So I don't know. It's been a real fun ride. Kathleen, you've been a really great co-host. I'd like to say, though, that for me, this podcast has been an extension of a couple of great privileges. First, the privilege of working with the International Dairy Foods Association and Michael Dykes, who's been a friend, mentor, partner over the course of these 5 to 7 years. Just tremendous. And the staff that's come with that, Jeff, the whole team, Michael Gooden previously. And I think, you've heard me say this before, you have the distinct privilege of influencing or making a difference, however teeny tiny difference, in our day jobs in the food industry. The journey, the miracle, in my opinion, of the journey between farm to plate in the food industry, ag industry, dairy industry, what have you. And our guests have come from every part of that chain, right? Someone here, someone there, all the way to food banks. And we've had restaurant development chefs, and we've had converters, we've had cheesemakers. It's been a real broad spectrum of people. And I just think it's a privilege that we get to interact with the people in the industry on a daily basis, and not least with this podcast.
Over the past 5 years, I think we've broadened our horizon outside of the niche of dairy. We've learned about things like vanilla. I didn't know anything about vanilla.
We've learned about what was happening in the room where it happened on some trade negotiations, right? A couple of our guests have been trade negotiators or right there on the front lines, right? That's been fun. One of my thoughts as we put together this show, so one of my heroes, one of my journalistic heroes, and one of my broadcasting heroes is Tony Kornheiser. Runs the PTI show, Part of the Interruption on ESPN. Been doing it for at least 25 years. I heard yesterday that Tony and Michael Wilbon signed up for 3 more years, taking him all the way to age 8, Tony all the way to age 80. But we did model the beginning of the show after the PTI show, right? If you watch a PTI show, down the right-hand side of the screen, there's the show, the run of show, and it's always, it always starts the same and it always ends the same topics. And so that's been part of this fun too, is that every episode, all right, Kathleen, where are we now? And then we get the market update, and then what's the most important thing right now? And that's been fun to talk about. We roll into the stat of the week. We're data geeks, right? We love the stat of the week. And then, I don't know, we might have mixed opinions on the bold prediction, fearless prediction segment. I think until last year, I was undefeated. I won the first few years.
For sure.
Last year, comeback victory for Kathleen. Got on the scoreboard. I'm guessing you're ahead this year. I have not asked because I don't want to know, because I fear I'm behind, and I might be way behind this year. And so that's been part of the fun too. We get fearless prediction critiques and requests.
Yeah.
Like, don't be such a baby, Phil. Make a bold prediction. I've heard that.
Yeah. The listeners want bold predictions. If we've learned anything, it's that they don't want us to be,
no wishy-washy predictions here.
Don't be lazy. Make a good one.
So on this episode, as part of the special celebration, we have 2 distinguished guests. One is a repeat guest, and one is a first-time guest. And you would never predict which one is which, because the first-time guest is actually Michael Dykes, the CEO and president of the International Dairy Foods Association. This has been kind of we're doing this in his house, more or less, but he has not yet appeared on the podcast until this episode, I'm pretty sure. And then Greg Dowd, who has come to us a couple of times. First, I believe he was the U.S. trade representative negotiator in the USTR role in the first Trump administration, worked for Robert Lighthizer. It was a great episode. And now Mr. Dowd comes back to us this time around as the head of the National Milk Producers Federation. So we have the 2 heads of the biggest dairy associations in the United States. Little roundtable conversation. We had a lot of fun with it, and we hope that you enjoy it.
Yeah, Phil, this was a really fun panel to do. So I'm excited. I hope that the listeners enjoy.
We've invited 2 special leaders from the industry to talk with us about how dairy has changed over the past 5 years and where we're going. We have Michael Dykes from IDFA with us. We have Greg Dowd, the CEO of the National Milk Producers Federation. A little bit about each person. Michael is a longtime government affairs strategist, incredible Rolodex, agricultural policy expert and veterinarian. He became CEO and president of the IDFA in January 2017. In this role, he represents members that make most of the milk, cultured products, cheese, ice cream, and frozen desserts, and dairy-derived ingredients produced in the U.S. and marketed throughout the world. Since joining IDFA, Dr. Dykes has been a strong advocate for putting U.S. dairy at the center of health and wellness, innovation, sustainability, a vibrant U.S. economy, a stable and diverse workforce, and leading the world in global dairy exports. Michael, welcome to the Dairy Download.
Glad to be here.
Greg Dowd is actually a return guest, but this time he comes to us as president and CEO of the National Milk Producers Federation. His distinguished career includes a role as chief agricultural negotiator in the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative, president of the Commodity Markets Council, and chief economist for the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. He's a native of Mankato, Kansas, where he grew up raising cattle, and is an alumnus of Kansas State University. Greg, welcome back to the Dairy Download.
Thanks for having me.
The dairy industry has changed tremendously in the past 5 years. What are you guys seeing on the ground during your visits to processors and farms, and how is this industry evolving? Greg, let's start with you. I'm sure you're out there on the farm and visiting plants here and there. What are you seeing, and what's evolved the most in your estimation?
Well, I've only been here at National Milk for a couple of years, but been in agriculture here in Washington for now, as of this Labor Day, 33 years, which I usually tell people means I'm of absolutely no value to anyone in the outside world any longer. Dr. Dykes, you can say what you want about that. But I think the thing that I talk about most often out in the country these days is the 10 billion. And that refers to the 10 billion. If you look at 2023, 24, 25, 26, 10 billion in new processing investment in the United States. And that's being done by some of Dr. Dykes' membership. It's being done by some of my membership on the co-op side. You've got some foreign money coming in. You've got farmer money coming in. I don't think there's another industry, another ag commodity in any country in the world that has anything even remotely close to that going on. And I think that's where you have to start this conversation in dairy, because this is an investment in U.S. dairy farmers and what we have going on economically in the U.S. This is unprecedented.
I would add to that. Well, first off, I think I would disagree with Greg on one thing. Greg has a lot of value. Years of experience in D.C. I appreciate his role at USTR and enjoyed working with him there and enjoy working with him here. As I think about the dairy industry, and I started milking cows probably 60 plus years ago, the changes in this dairy industry, not just in the last 5 years, but across those many years, the thing I see is, I would echo what Greg commented on, is the capital investments in dairy. And the reason we're seeing capital investments is people are seeing growth and excitement. There's excitement to be in dairy. The things that new technology is bringing. I mean, again, as a kid, started milking cows by hand, and seeing robots that can milk cows is it's unbelievable. I think about all the nutritional aspects of dairy. We're now seeing an appreciation for full fat dairy and the difference between saturated fat and dairy than others. Fluid milk consumption up since 2009. I mean, the exports, there's just so many things. There's so many positives, and it's great to be in an industry that is forward looking, growing, and with growth comes new opportunities, and investments is bringing new efficiency. The focus on nutrition, protein, with dairy, it's an exciting time to be in dairy. Our Holstein cows are milking like jerseys. We're 4%, but we're 4% butterfat. It's an unbelievable time.
I'm just kind of curious. There's a lot that's changed in 5 years. What is the most surprising to you? Dr. Dykes, let's start with you on that.
I would go two things. Just the explosive growth, and Greg mentioned it. We're looking at a little over $10 billion in investments. And the interesting thing is, every time I show that slide at every presentation, I have people come up to me afterwards and say, I really liked your slide, but your slide's not correct. And I go, oh my goodness, if we've made a mistake in that, I apologize. But what did we misquote a figure? Did we put something on there that's not accurate, or where do we go wrong? And of course, after the third or fourth time, I kind of anticipated what the mistake was going to be. You didn't cover. We're only doing a $300 million expansion, but you don't have that on there. And I go, well, good God, how do we miss it? Let me give me a pencil paper. I want to write that down again. Oh, no, we didn't go public with it. We don't want it out there. But you just missed us. Okay, so I apologize. But I'd say, Kathleen, it's the growth is one thing. The other thing is the farmer's ability to produce milk has always impressed me. But I got to tell you, the things they're doing today with, again, as I mentioned, butterfat, Holstein's 4% and over, protein percentage is where it is. Somatic cell counts at 100,000 on the herd average. I mean, the things they're doing on the dairy farms, the efficiency we're getting out of our dairy plants, all the things we're doing with protein concentrates, the nutritional aspects, those would be the two areas to me, Kathleen.
Greg, how about for you? What's the most surprising thing in the dairy industry that's happened in 5 years?
Well, I would go back about 15 rather than 5. And it was probably somewhere around 15 years ago in the trade discussions that we were having. The dairy industry was like, no, we want to be left alone. We don't care about exporting anything. We just want to be our own little world and not have anybody bother us. 15 years ago or 10 years ago, somewhere in there, that changed. And the most surprising thing to me is to see once the industry made that change and that change in mindset, and you decided you wanted to be part of the global marketplace, you are now exporting 9.5 billion in dairy around the world. And it's really amazing for me to see now, just in the last 5 years, as Dr. Dykes indicated, the MPCs, all the different products that we're exporting around the world. It is every day the business is evolving in a much more sophisticated fashion in terms of the types of products that we're producing, that Dr. Dykes is indicating the new investment, and the types of products that we're exporting. I think all of these things go hand in hand. And to me, on the trade side of the equation, we're just in the first quarter here. I think there's so much more dairy can do on the trade side of the equation, which again is the reason that's drawing that $10 billion in investment.
And Greg, I mean, amazing change in 15 years, but my guess is you probably see runway beyond what we've already done, right? I mean, we see Europe kind of in retreat, or at least, not growing, but maybe even shrinking its industry. New Zealand kind of tapped out. Are you bullish on those opportunities going forward?
Well, I will tell you, since I left USTR, so that would be almost 5 years ago now, I've given dozens, well over 100 speeches out in the country where I talk about the fact that in the world, looking forward over the next 10 years or 15 years or however long you want to go, the supply of animal protein in the world, beef, pork, poultry, dairy, comes nowhere near meeting the demand. Nowhere near. And the reason for that $10 billion in investment in dairy in the United States is going on in all of the animal proteins. If you're going to expand, you're going to grow, you're going to do this. The only place you can do this is in the U.S. Europe is tapped out to declining. New Zealand is certainly tapped out. Australia is kind of maxed out. You're not doing it in a tropical environment. The place to do that is here. And, we need to focus on the infrastructure and everything that we need here to be able to continue and grow and do that. You look at where dairy is growing in the U.S., it's growing in really remarkable places like Texas, Kansas, and South Dakota. And you say, well, if you look at South Dakota, what are these guys doing? Well, they're buying old cattle feed yards for the CAFO permits in the water. They're putting a roof over it, and away we go. And that is the evolution of what we're going to see in the U.S. in dairy going forward. No question about it.
So, Michael, that inevitably brings up questions around policy. So it's all been fun and games up to this point, but now uncertainty for sure around trade policy and tariffs. How do you see that conversation in terms of where we're at, where we might be going, and what the impact is for dairy, U.S. dairy?
Well, I think there is a lot of uncertainty. And I think, as Greg mentioned, we've seen some things announced. So most of the things that have been announced have been very limited details around what those are. I think there's a real view and opinion on part of agriculture that President Trump is trying to use the bargaining power of the U.S. for leverage to get better deals. And as more of these deals are announced and as the details become clear, I'm optimistic about what will happen here for dairy. I do agree totally with Greg. The world needs protein. I think that's one of the things we got going good for us. Our producers are the most productive in the world. They will find a way to address these issues. And I often don't get them anymore, but I used to get them all the time when I'd show the graph of the investments. Will we have enough milk? Will we have enough milk? And I always have said, the last thing I worry about is enough milk. The American farmer, you send a market signal that the market needs more milk, you'll get more milk. And then people want to explain to me about how long it takes for a heifer to be able to get bred and freshen and milk and all. I'm well familiar with all that. Dairy farmers will find a way to produce milk, and they are finding a way to produce milk. We are meeting the demands. The policy wise, yes, we'll have issues on those. We're seeing those with the MAHA movement. We're seeing those kinds of things. But I would say in all these policy debates, we're seeing some first time positives for dairy. As I mentioned earlier, full fat dairy. I mean, we're close to getting whole milk back in schools. Our Secretary of HHS is talking about the benefits of full fat and drinking whole milk. We're seeing with all the GLP drugs and all the other weight loss efforts, a real focus on protein, which again plays into dairy's strong hand. The size and scale of our dairy. I mean, we saw this. Greg and I've been doing this for many, many years. We saw this in poultry. Then we saw it happen in the swine industry. We're now seeing. I mean, we're seeing herds that we never would have thought about 10 years ago. The size of herds and the things that our American farmers can do, and their capability to manage the size of operations. So we'll have some policy issues. We'll work our way through those. We always do. I think also we're seeing as we're seeing the increased focus on nutrition and the nutritional benefits of dairy. I think we'll see that. We're seeing that with cottage cheese. We're seeing that with yogurt. I think we'll see it in the SNAP deal, the federal programs. We'll see it back in the schools. So we'll work our way through those kinds of things. One policy issue we have coming that we've got to work on is immigration. That's one of the issues trade, yes, we're all working on trade and we'll continue to be, but immigration is one of those issues that I would say is front and center for us in terms of farm labor.
Greg, you have tremendous experience with USTR, and I'm sure that all this policy discussion around trade has certainly been pinging in your mind around how does it influence dairy and drawing on your prior experience. How do you see the trade situation unfolding for dairy? Do you think that these policy discussions are heading in a good direction for the industry? And I'm also curious around, as Dr. Dykes mentioned, the MAHA movement. Certainly there's a lot of push for whole foods, and dairy to me is a whole food. Are there opportunities, challenges for your membership within that movement?
Yeah, I think for this audience, when we talk about trade, we have to start with this notion of the era of free trade agreements in Washington is probably over. If you go up and talk to folks on both sides of the aisle on Capitol Hill, they're tired of giving stuff away. And the whole notion of the political capital it takes to do a free trade agreement today is just nobody's really interested in anymore on either side. And so now we have to figure out how to do what President Trump is doing, is leveraging the U.S. economy to with different countries to get done what you can get done. And that leaves us in a real interesting position of, okay, what can we get done with these different countries? I think we're making some progress in places like Indonesia. I think it's enormously difficult when we deal with places like Canada, deal with places like Europe. So, we're going to have to do a lot of, bunt singles and stealing bases and dribs and drabs here rather than big picture things on the trade side of the equation. So it's a new era on trade, not only in Washington, but I think around the world. On the MAHA side of the equation, I would just say this. I'm not an expert in nutrition. That's not really been my thing, but it's always struck me that the dietary guidelines were several decades behind the curve. Just way, stubbornly unwilling to adapt to where we are in the world today. And where I think we are in the world today is people, consumers, understand how good animal-based protein and animal-based products are for you. And this whole notion that fat is no longer a bad thing. The MAHA thing has finally put out in the open that dairy products, anything made with dairy, and the fat coming from that cow is a good thing for your body. And I think we shouldn't be shy about talking about that. I mean, you talk to my parents and there was a whole era in the 70s and some point in the 80s that, oh my gosh, you couldn't consume this kind of stuff. It was bad for you. I still think we've got a lot of work to do with doctors. My nephew just graduated as a doctor. He never took a nutrition class in his life. So when I think the Malaha folks talk about educating doctors about what we know about nutrition today, I think it's spot on. I think we've got some things that we need to work on in terms of production agriculture to have a conversation with some of these folks about to help them understand that the technology in ag is what we've got to have. But on the nutrition side, I think this is a good thing.
And how is National Milk Producers Federation and your members engaging in that nutrition conversation?
Oh, I think this is an area where IDFA and National Milk have worked really well together, along with the dairy checkoff, and helping everybody understand what we have to offer on the nutrition side of the equation. I think we work very, very well, have been very engaged with USDA and HHS on the dietary guidelines. This is the fourth checkoff that I've been involved in my career. I would say one of the most unique things I've ever seen a checkoff do is what the dairy checkoff is doing with the Mayo Clinic with regard to pulling on the thread of what everything in milk does in terms of human health, every component, every micronutrient in dairy, and what that does in human health, and explaining to that and what that means. I think that's unbelievably important research, and it couldn't be more timely.
Let's shift gears and talk about immigration. Dr. Dykes teed this up earlier, but half of our workforce is foreign born. In the current immigration and labor environment, what do we as a dairy industry need to be doing to ensure that the cows keep getting milked and are cared for, and our processing facilities are running on time, safely and efficiently, etc.? Greg, why don't you start there, since immigration is so key from a dairy farm perspective.
This is when you talk to my members, this is an issue that is front of center, top of my, I don't know, whatever way you want to describe it. Our folks are very concerned at the producer level about this, and this is where again the industry has changed, is the fact that we have a whole lot of these folks on the farm. And the point I would make here, I guess, more than anything else, is for dairy farmers, the whole notion of these being undocumented workers, I want to knock that right. We got to stop. That's not true. These folks are documented. They've been on these farms 10, 15, 20 years. We have done everything in terms of, legally what we need to do to have these folks in helping us on these farms. Our challenge is that we just don't have a visa program that works for us. HUA is not a program that works for dairy farmers. Never has been. We've always been this state of limbo here, and so last time we had this conversation about immigration in this country was 1986. It's long overdue to get us back in line with all this. Now there's going to be some struggles here. Obviously, some stuff going on as we try to lasso this thing from the president's perspective. We've got to figure out a way at the end of the day to have a program that works for us, and we've got to get Congress engaged on this. And right now, Dr. Dykes, you can react to this. It just doesn't seem like we're there yet. They understand the need for it, but we just can't get the tractor in gear.
Yeah, I always say, if you think about dairy and compare dairy to meat, with meat, they don't have so much trouble on the farm getting the meat animals to the processing plant. It's in the processing plants. With us in dairy, it's more about getting the milk to the processing plants than it is within the processing plant. Clearly, we need labor inside the processing plants as well. But immigration is first and foremost on the farm for us in dairy. There is no dairy farmer out there that wants to have folks with criminal, violent backgrounds working on their farms. And I remind people of this my entire career. When we talk about water quality, air quality, whatever you want to talk about on the farm, the farmers live there too. The owners live in that environment. They live with these people. And as Greg said, they've been there 10, 15, 20 years. They know them. Their kids grew up with them. No one wants to have violent actors working on the farms. The questions issues we have is with E-Verifies about what we have today. That's not at all. That's not accurate, not dependable when it comes to knowing the exact status of whoever's there. We don't have a visa program that works. We haven't for over 40 years. H-2A doesn't work for dairy. We need something. And in all my conversations with members of Congress, until President Trump or the White House, especially Jeff Miller, comes forward and says, hey, here's what we want to do about this, and it works for folks. Unfortunately, I don't know that Congress is going to do much on this until they get a clear signal from the White House. This is what we want done. And I think that's going to come largely from the White House folks and from Department of Labor and from the Department of Agriculture.
So they said, we got to secure the border. We've done that. So now let's go.
Yeah, that's always been the issue. When you talk to Congress, don't talk to me about this. We got to first things, Dykes, we got to close the border. But once we close the border, then we can talk about, well, to Greg's point, we've closed, and I say this, now that we've closed the border, what are we going to do?
And it seems like we have an ally in Secretary Rollins on this, right? I mean, I think, she's kind of popped her head above ground a few times and talked about the importance of farm workers. I mean, that's part of the dance too, right? Is the ag voice in all this?
Well, I think Secretary Rollins is great. I think Secretary of Labor Chavez Green was been great on this. I think our immigration czar over there working on all stuff. My understanding, he's got a dairy background. He gets all this from a dairy perspective. So I don't, we have Stephen Miller that's, executing a game plan that he wants to get done in terms of the criminal element. I think Dr. Dyke just discussed this very appropriately. It's Congress. Everybody understands that Congress has to go, but I think, Michael, you said it well. They're waiting from a signal from the president to take off on and get down this road. We're waiting as well.
So, as is, for better or for worse, not the first time around, we don't really have a farm bill, or we're in farm bill limbo. How do we see this debate evolving? Where is it going? And what are the critical pieces of the farm bill from a dairy industry perspective? Greg, why don't you take a swing at that one first? Where do you think we're going, and what are the critical items on your agenda?
The honest answer is we're in pretty good shape. We got most of what we needed in the big, beautiful bill. That's when I talk to farmers out in farm country, most people don't realize that, in terms of corn and soybean, wheat prices, we've got the increase in the reference prices. For dairy, we've gotten federal milk marketing order reform done. We have the money and the update in what we've already passed in terms of updating that, in terms of studies that we need to get done and things like that. So I don't really see, there aren't any huge, gigantic priorities in the farm bill now per se. So I think we're in pretty good shape, fortunately. The question is, will there be a farm bill done yet this year or not? I've talked to lots of members on both sides of the equation. You get some mixed messages on that. So it's going to be difficult. I think once we get through this appropriations process and everything else, to find the time to do it, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, my take on that is I think when I hear people come to town and I see different farm groups in town, and I say, what are you guys here for? They say, well, we're here for the farm bill. We need a farm bill. I said, what do you need out of the farm bill? Well, Dykes, we need a farm bill. I'm clear you need a farm bill, but what do you need out of the farm bill? I'm with Greg. A lot of them don't realize what has already been done. I mean, we had economic disaster payments. We had disaster payments in December. We've had reference prices raised in the Big Beautiful. We got some things that we could benefit from, and we got some things we need in terms of dairy. We'd like to see the Dairy Nutrition Incentive Program be added to the next farm bill, which would expand to all fat levels of milk, to cheese and yogurt. I think that's a big plus for both Republicans and Democrats. And as we think about going forward on a farm bill, why have we always had a farm bill when most of it, 80+% of it's about nutrition, is to get the rural-urban alliance to come together to actually pass the policy. Because we tried this 6, 8, 10 years ago of separating the two, because we had a member from Indiana that was absolutely convinced that it would go forward on farm policy. Well, we had to combine them to ever get it passed. It wouldn't happen. I think Chairman G.T. Thompson has an opportunity, and Mr. Bozeman an opportunity, working with Klobuchar and Angie Craig, to do some things around SNAP to help with some of the food and urban interest. So I'm hopeful that something like Dairy Nutrition Incentive Program that all four corners support will be in there and might help build some more unity so we can expand that to all fat levels of milk. Today it's only skim and 1%. We can get to all fat levels of milk. We can add cheese. We can add yogurt to that. I think it'd be a great thing for consumers. I think it'd be a great thing to build political unity, and I think it'd be a great thing for the dairy industry. That mandatory cost surveys would be another thing that if we could get a farm bill done here in the remaining days, it would be a good thing to do as well. So I'm hopeful. I think it will take a little longer than maybe what was thought, but I'm hopeful we get that done here somehow before September 30th.
Let's talk careers. Both of you chose a career in dairy. What message would you share with someone that's looking to make a career in dairy? What's the draw?
For me, I grew up in it. I started milking cows when I was 5 years old. I've always loved cows. Cows are my favorite animal. It is, to me, part of what draws me to this too is just the values that are kind of inherent within the whole broad dairy industry. There's a lot of caring for your neighbor. There's a lot about helping people in need. People pitch in to help get the farm work done. The cow's milk when there's a death in the family, when there's a disaster of some sort. Dairy comes together to help one another. I really like that. And there's such a real sense of accomplishment when you see the fruits of your labor produce the products that come from dairy. Milk, yogurt, cheese, butter, and most importantly, probably to many, many people, is ice cream. It's an industry that has a lot of positives about it. And it's such a gratifying place to work. I have loved every minute of it.
It's a great answer, Dr. Dykes. I'm going to come at it from a little different angle of a farm boy from Kansas that was pre-vet animal science at K-State. Dr. Dykes is a veterinarian. I went on and got a master's in ag economics. And for young people, as an old state FFA officer myself, you have this conversation about how incredibly diverse the careers in agriculture are. You here in Washington, we see it every day. When I was at USTR, the chemistry, the science, the food safety, the nutrition side of the equation is just a whole area of careers that you can go into. The technology on the production ag side of the equation and what we're doing with drones and precision ag and everything there, whether you're agronomy or whatever you are, an unbelievable amount of change there. On the animal science side with the cows, the technology that we have today with all of that. On the nutrition side of the equation, food science and all that, an unbelievably diverse set of things that you can do in agriculture. And so we have to remind folks that there's a lot more that goes into this rather than just feeding that cow and milking her every day.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us on the Dairy Download, and thank you so much for your commitment to the dairy industry. It's been a really fun 5 years on the Dairy Download, and hope to have you back in another 5.
We'll be here.
Yeah, enjoyed it very much. Always enjoy these kind of times. Thank you, Greg. I love partnering with Greg Dowd. Not an issue.
We're a good team. We really are.
That's a wrap for today's show. As always, we want to thank our production team, Matt Herrick, Mariah Minnick, Andrew Jerome, and Jeff Cullen at IDFA, and Abby Bauer over here at Everag. Let's also thank our alumni support team, Michael Gooden, who's now actually working for Everag, and Corey Romero, who's gone on to bigger and better things. They were a big part of the early days of this show, so thanks to all of them. If you are interested in what Kathleen and I do for our day jobs, check us out at ever.ag. Remember, if you enjoy the show, hit the subscribe button and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform.
Thanks for listening to the Dairy Download. Until next time, stay sharp.